Hello and welcome. Actions, not words. That's usually the way people expect results. But when it comes to bridging serious gaps between religions, there are very few options. Muslims and Christians in particular have seen some troubled periods, and after the attacks of 9/11, Islam has been put under close scrutiny in many Christian-majority countries. Well, some leading figures from both religions have been pushing for serious interfaith dialogue as a way to close the divide between them. One of the major initiatives, known as the Common Word, began 2 years ago when 38 Muslim scholars wrote an open letter to Pope Benedict XVI. They argued that the basis for the relationship between Islam and Christianity is the love of God and the love of the neighbor. Well, now Christian leaders have joined the effort with a conference being held all this week at Yale University in the US and a series of meetings planned for the next 2 years, including one at the Vatican next year. Critics argue that it's impossible to bridge the gap between these two religions and that such dialogue is nothing more than polite chatter. So what progress has interfaith dialogue made? Can religious leaders help decrease the stereotypes and increase tolerance among the followers of Islam and Christianity? Don't forget, we take your calls on this show and you can reach us at the numbers at the bottom of your screen. Joining me are two leaders in the interfaith dialogue movement. Dr. Ingrid Mattson is the president of the Islamic Society of North America, which was founded more than 25 years ago and is one of the largest Muslim groups in America. And Dr. Mattson is the director of the Center for the Study of Islam and Christian-Muslim Relations at the Hartford Seminary in Connecticut. She joins us from New York. And Dr. Miroslav Volf is an influential Christian theologian and director of Yale University's Center for Faith and Culture. He's one of the organizers of the Dialogue Conference currently underway at Yale in New Haven, Connecticut, from where he joins us. I thank you both for being on the show.
Thanks.
Delighted to be there.
Thank you. Dr. Mattson, if I could start with you. You've been at the Common Ground Interfaith Dialogue now taking place at Yale University, and I wonder how genuinely useful you are finding it to be.
More than I expected, in fact. I did expect some serious academic discussions, scholarly discussions, which we did undertake. 4 days of workshops before the public conference, and I think those were very successful. But what's exceeded my expectations are the meaningful conversations and more in-depth conversations that have taken place outside of the formal papers and workshops, where Christians and Muslims have gotten to know each other and spent some time really connecting on a deeper spiritual and ethical level. That's been very satisfying to me.
Now, Professor Wolf, apparently interfaith dialogue dates back to the late 19th century, which I was surprised to discover. But like formal discussions, but I wonder what new questions are being asked now at Yale as this one takes place.
Well, life in which we live, which always changes, brings always with itself a new questions. And religions themselves, they're not sequestered off from life, but they're part of life. And also new insights, surprising insights that sometimes seems obvious in retrospect emerge, like the insight that underlies Common Word, namely that what unites Christians and Muslims is common faith in one God and also love of God and love of neighbor. Now that's immensely productive for discussion, and I think that's immensely productive for practical life.
Just a quick question then, Professor, at this conference now, what areas of common ground have you found between the Christians and Muslims there in particular?
Well, whole discussions are premised on the idea that a love of God and love of neighbor is common in Islam and in Christianity. And that's what binds them, and indeed that binds them, not just the two of them together, but also that binds them with Judaism. And that indeed is, I think, very significant and very, very promising, because you have to think of it. Religions in general, Islam and Christianity in particular, have been accused of fostering and fomenting violence and discord, and suddenly that which binds those religions is not some specific thing that is completely different between them, but something that's common and something that is able to bridge the gaps between them, namely love of other as neighbor in his or her difference.
Dr. Mattson, one of the criticisms that people have when it comes to Islam is that Muslims are expecting people to learn a lot more about Islam, especially now that the religion has been pretty much battered around the world post 9/11. But they ask, is Islam or are Muslims as willing to learn about other religions? Often this doctrine seems so strict that there doesn't seem any encouragement for Muslims to say, go out and learn about Christianity, Judaism and other religions.
Well, first of all, it's required for Muslims to know about other religions because they're mentioned in the holy book of Islam, which is the Quran. A Muslim needs to believe in Jesus and all of the Hebrew prophets in order to be a Muslim. So I think Muslims in some ways have an advantage in having this natural curiosity, but sometimes unfortunately, Muslims stop with that basic understanding or that understanding of a common heritage and don't go beyond the basics to really understand how Christians and Jews and others live their faiths in today's world. What I've seen in this conference, and indeed in the last few years since the Common Word Initiative was begun, is a true interest on the part of many Muslim leaders to understand how Christians live their faith in today's world, what it means for their lives as ethical and moral human beings, as well as an interest in other religions. So I think this is something, this natural curiosity has blossomed into a sense of conviction that we need to have a factual basis for our engagement and not revert to old stereotypes or superficial understandings of each other.
We had a couple of emails which I'd like to read back to back on a similar theme, and I'll put these to you, Professor Wolf, if I may. The first one from Jay Morris, who wrote in from here in the USA, saying, "To be more aware of other religions is the only way to hope for understanding." And then we had one from Kansas, and Deborah wrote in saying, "In a perfect world where people believed in education, we all should be more aware about each other's religions. Certainly we can tolerate our differences, even our differing religious preferences. I just wish religion wouldn't cause war." Now, I wonder in this case, I mean, we're talking about an interfaith gathering, but it was very heavily centered on Christianity and Islam. Why in particular those two then?
Well, Common Word itself was addressed by Muslims, by leading Muslims worldwide, to Christian leaders. And it was addressed, I take it, to Christian leaders because at this particular stage and in history, the relationship between these two faiths, the most numerous faiths in the world, are at a very low point. And it was necessary and important to address that issue and find ways out of the resources of those faiths themselves of addressing that issue. That doesn't exclude addressing other issues in relationship with other faiths. It certainly doesn't include knowledge of other faiths. I should add maybe just one point to one of your persons who wrote an email. I think understanding of other religions is very important. And we can't do well without understanding others. But I think I want to add that understanding as such is not enough. I can understand with various goals. I can understand so as to demean. I can understand so as to push away. But I can also seek to understand in order to embrace, in order to build bridges, in order to appreciate, in order to enjoy. And so I think we have to nurture not just the virtues of intellect, so to speak, but also the virtues of heart.
We've got a call on the line from Saudi Arabia. Khadir is on the line with a question. Go ahead, Khadir.
Yeah, Riz, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Riz, since last time, since the Pope became as a Pope, I think he's one of the most ignorant Pope we have ever found in history. Second thing is that all the time when it comes to debate or a dialogue between Islam and comparative religion with Christianity, as the lady there, she has rightly said, it is the Muslims who have been encouraged by the religious belief and the teachings of Islam towards the dialogue with the book, people of the book.
But Khadir, let me put that to Dr. Madsen and ask, I mean, when it comes to the issue, I mean, you know, the Pope, this latest Pope, Pope Benedict, has obviously received a lot of criticism for his difference in style, at least, compared with Pope John Paul. So I wonder, when it comes to leadership at the top, how much of an effort is there at the very top levels of religious leadership to try to find some kind of harmony?
Well, I think what's important, Riz, is not that we only focus on the mistakes and misstatements and times when indeed even we might deliberately hurt each other. If we are going to break off relations or turn away from each other every time that happens, then there will be no relationship. What's important is that following these misunderstandings, that we have an existing relationship to at least express our concern and to discuss those issues that were raised that were harmful. And that's what's happened, in fact, with the Vatican, that we've had many discussions, Muslims with Catholics, about various statements that have been made. And we've engaged in a discussion of why these issues are important and are looking forward to a time when we can continue that. And let me say that, of course, Muslims have also made statements about Christians and others that have been irresponsible and hurtful. So we all need to acknowledge the wrong that we've done, the wrong that's been done in the name of our faith, and to make sure that we have a substantial enough relationship that we're able to continue to have a dialogue even in the wake of these statements.
Dr. Matson, a quick response to this email question, if you would, please. It's come in from New Jersey here in the USA, and Jim Crosby wrote in asking this. He says, there's never going to be an understanding of each other's religion unless people are willing to minimize their faith. The fact that Christ is the Son of God will never be accepted by those of Islamic faith. Their belief that Christ is a prophet goes against everything the Catholic faith is built upon. I wouldn't expect those of the Islamic faith to marginalize their beliefs, just as I won't mind. So I wonder, when you have a difference here, I mean, is it that the differences are theological as such, or are there the other issues coming in also into this mix here, the cultural differences that exist between, for example, Islam and Christianity, based on the countries in which those religions are majority?
Sure. There's no need for Christians to become Muslims or Muslims to become Christians for us to recognize that we have these shared essential core values, love of God and love of the neighbor. As the person who from New Jersey says, there are Christians who will absolutely believe that their conception of God is the correct one and that Muslims are mistaken, and there are Muslims who will believe the same thing. Everyone doesn't have to be a theological pluralist, but while still holding on to the particularity of our beliefs, we can still acknowledge and recognize, and this is what we've done in the last week at Yale University, probed the fact that at the deepest core of both of our religions, that it is this love of God and love of neighbor that informs our actions, our relationships with each other, and provides such a substantial common platform that we can and should live together and work together for the sake of a better world. well,
we have people standing by on the phone with questions. We have to take a very short break here, though. We'll be back with our discussion of interfaith dialogue when we return. Don't go away.